Okay, welcome back to the Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy. Pretty sure the last time I updated you, I only read the first story, which was Welcome to the Shadowhunter Academy, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I gave it a 4 out of 5, maybe a 5 out of 5 stars. And now, all these I can tell you. I'm going to tell you what they're about, and I'm also going to mention that there's spoilers for both the entire Mortal Instruments and the entire Mortal Devices. If you don't want to know who ends up with who, and you don't want to know any spoiler, I mean, you have to at least read the Mortal Instruments to read this. But if you read everything, oh my god, it's so rewarding. There's so much about this book that is so rewarding. I get it. I get it. I get it. You know. All right, let's talk about it. Let's dive in. I tend to go by them, and also I'll tell you the ones I think you should read. At the end, I'll tell you my favorites and the ones you definitely should read. But I'm gonna tell you in this specific review portion which ones that you like. Okay. So we start with The Lost Herondale. The Lost Herondale, which is a story that is centered around them getting sent off into, like, they're gonna go find a vampire. Simon and a group of his are tasked to kill a vampire. The vampire actually ends up dying by Isabel, which starts one of the many threads throughout the story with Isabel. I'm not a huge fan of what they did with Simon and Isabel. To be honest with you, a hot take. I kind of supported it, but also, like, he cheated on her so badly that I was like, oh, you can do better, Isabel. Like, I wanted better for Isabel. But I have to say, through all the pain they put me through throughout this book, which we're going to get into, I kind of support them. And I kind of hope it works out because, I think in the long run, I hope they're in game. Because TS flirtations, they mention Julia, and they mention another girl's name. Sorry, I've been up for like 24 hours. So if I don't remember every exact detail, that's the reason why. So yeah, a big plot line here was, oh, we're going to tell you the story of this. And then he goes and has a conversation with this teacher because a big part of this is Simon figuring out that he doesn't really believe in the laws that the Shadowhunters are putting forward. This is a huge thing. This is based off of, these specific laws are based off of treason. Treason that wasn't even, like, really dealt with really well, and we're seeing the corrupt society that we have seen throughout all the books of Shadowhunters and how corrupt the government is, and, and the government system, whatever you want to call it, and the council, I should say. And this one, the Herondale that ends up getting lost, he's like abandoning, like, you go to the military and you desert. It's kind of the same situation, and so they kill his wife and the unborn child as revenge for him, like, getting lost or whatever. And we have that story of that lost Herondale. And this person who becomes, like, really close to his is a teacher there. She ends up taking in the child. She ends up living with the child that supposedly died, didn't die. And raising it as a Herondale, but as, like, a normal person, just like Clary was, which is a whole interesting thing. And so that's kind of like the gist of the story. I gave it a 5 out of 5, by the way. This was phenomenal. And this is where I was like, oh, I kind of like the Isabel and the Simon back and forth stuff, because I like Simon here. I have to say, as Simon progresses, I'm not liking him as much anymore. We'll get there. I read like 6 stories today, so it's all kind of jumbled. But that's like the first one that I read today. And I like the story of the Lost Herondale. And it's also the only one out of this whole collection. Like, the first one's a total Simon story, whereas this one so far is a total Simon story as well. All the rest of the stories have a different point of view in it, where it's not like a different point of view. We jump back in a time period or something like that, and we get a whole, like, character background, which I love on certain cases. Not on all. Some of them just, like, stick with Simon, guys. And I'm not really sure if that's because they're writing with 4 different authors now, and I'm not entirely sure. The next one we read today was the Whitechapel Fiend, which is 123. I want to say the Whitechapel. Hold on, I don't want to get them wrong. Not that I don't remember them. It's just, oh, okay. This one was phenomenal. So this one, Tessa comes in and she speaks of a story. This is a story of Jack the Ripper, and Will and their kids and stuff all experienced Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper came in. Jack the Ripper was a child murdering all these different people, and stuff like that. And this whole story takes place when Tessa and Will are freaking out about Jack the Ripper. And you see Jem, and you see a few other characters that are in TID. And it was just, I just loved it. It was a 5 out of 5 for me. It was great. I loved the dynamics and the chemistry. And, you know, it's really interesting because James is such a very important part to this story. There's like 3 different stories that take place with James. James is their son, by the way, who I also think, if I'm not mistaken, is in Chain of Gold. I think he's the main character over in Chain of Gold. But he's a really interesting character in just a simple fact that I know where he goes because Magnus Bane collection. And I'm not saying this definitely shouldn't be read first. I think Magnus should be read first because of other characters that show up. Cameos, I should say. And because of Magnus Bane, you kind of know where James is headed, and he mentions Lucy. It was just really, really fun. I had a great time with it. Overall, it's one of my favorites, and if you really do want more of that content, that's where I point you. Okay. So then we have Nothing But Shadows, which starts on page 180. That one's also really short, which I remembered. Let's see here. Nothing But Shadows is... Okay, so this is the one where predominantly the story takes place with James. So basically Simon is going through his whole phase of not really fitting in, and we wanted another character to showcase that they also didn't fit in. This is where James goes, and we jump back to like the 1800s. It might be the early... No, it's still the 1800s, I want to say. And we're traveling back to the 1800s. And we experience his whole first time at the Shadowhunter Academy. So we get another look at a different time period of the Shadowhunter Academy that we're currently going through right now. He ends up getting put with the Mundanes. He is horribly bullied. But he ends up meeting his Parvati, who I think ends up later dying, if I'm not mistaken, based on Magnus Bane collection. And he's like his mom. He can shapeshift in a way. Like I said, their whole power set is really confusing and just very hardly explained. Not to the best of my ability. And I remember it being explained kind of okay, but like not great. So let me know if you guys have better options for Tessa's power set. Either way. And so he has a similar power set to what Tessa has. And he ends up meeting his Parvati there, and they end up getting kicked out of school because someone gets murdered, and they blame it on him, and whole 9 yards. And so this reflects back over into, like, I think this is the one where Jay shows up. Clary shows up in the last one. That was one of the story plot lines. Because of, like, Isabel. Like, Isabel is a whole thread here. Jay shows up, not because of Isabel, but he's also lost, and so this is the 3 stories of Lost. He's lost because he doesn't fit into the Herondales. He had just chosen the name of the Herondales, and he's trying to figure it out, and so, you know, and he ends up going to Tessa because of Simon, and it's a whole moment, and it's really cute. And also, I really like James and Simon's relationship. I really, really do. I think that's, like, one of my favorite relationships throughout this whole book, and things like that. Simon himself, by this point, is getting a little bit repetitive and annoying, and I don't know if it's because there's so many offers handling the one character, but they're really repetitive, and I get it. He's trying to come out on his own, but over and over again, they're just saying it, and it's like, okay, I get it. And then we get to the whole Isabel drama, which I think is next, if I'm not mistaken. So we have, no, it's the Evil We Love. So we have Nothing But the, we are. Okay, so we have the Evil We Love. Oh, wow. I read a lot of them. And if I'm not mistaken, this is her dad. This is the Whitewoods. You know what? I gotta tell you, I didn't like this. This was the first, I think it was like 2.5 star. And here's the problem with this. There's so much here. Like, if you're a huge, so far, I recommend this book if you're a huge Shadowhunter fan. If you've not read it yet, you're kind of curious about the bind-ups, you're not really, entirely sure. I'm spoiling it all, so, sorry. But I'm here to talk to you about it. That's the whole point of this. So, with the Evil, and also I need someone to talk to about. The Evil You Love, it follows, their dad. Oh my god, I cannot think of his name. I think it's said in the picture, in the image. What is his name? I want to say it's Richard because it just sounds like a dick name. You know what I mean? I don't think it is Richard, though. Robert, which is Robert Whitewood, and it takes back to the circle with the Valentine. I'm just like over it. I'm way over the whole circle and Valentine, and it gets very important to like history lore, and I'm sure we'll get to read about it again in Ghosts of Shadow Markets. I'm sure it will pop up again in Chain of Gold. It's such an important, important part in history, and the Royal Instruments is all surrounded by it and stuff. This whole thing. But anyway, this one, there's two storylines going. There's a main storyline, so Isabel comes back into it. She's there for 4 days, and basically calls off Simon. She tells him, Simon has officially forgiven Isabel, and kind of wants to make this amends. He wants to fall back in love, but he wants to fall in love with her through like himself. And this is their final, we're with the first year. This is the end of the first year, if I'm not mistaken, of being a Shadowhunter Academy. I think it goes for 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. And so this is the end of the first year, and there's like the celebration whole thing. And so her dad, Robert, is the guest speaker. He's talking about his time with the Clave. He's also talking about his time with, specifically, how he didn't fit in with the Clave, and he fit in much more specifically with Valentine and his little group of things. This covers so many things that have already been covered, and I get why they're here, okay? Once again, I have such mixed opinions about this, because the Isabel and Simon stuff I really liked. I didn't really mind Isabel being trashy Isabel, and I don't mean that in a horrible way whatsoever. It's just the way she was portraying herself. I guess trashy is not the right word. It's not the Isabel we're used to. It's the Isabel that would probably have shown up in, like, book 2, We're used to, like, book 6 Isabel, which is a totally different character because of character development, and it plays into the story itself. And she ends up joining these wild parties, and for the main storyline, and I just found it so much more interesting. Everything going on there was so much more interesting because, like, by this point, I'm deeply involved in the relationship. I've been deeply involved in the relationship for several books now. And he's starting to remember things about Clary and about Jace, and that's about it. And so the Lightwoods are, like, buried deep into his mind, and he describes it really perfectly in the next scene, the next story. But they're really, really deep in the mind, and so they just cannot, she's just not coming to the surface. He remembers touching her, he remembers thinking that he loved her, and things like that. But those are things that are mentioned, like, in the first section of the book, so, like, it doesn't matter. With this one, it ends up being, like, this whole ruse thing, and he basically wins the challenge, and this other girl who likes him, who I don't like because he likes him, and it's just like, I don't support this. There's not enough pages here for me to say that it's a fully developed relationship, and also I get it, we're trying to play with a Simon that I don't know, a Simon that I really hated, who I end up kind of liking by the end. And here's the problem. By this book, I think it was by this story, not this book, by this story, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say this is true, I was a little over it. I was a tad, just a tad bit over it. He's getting a little cocky, and Simon cocky is like the worst Simon, and so he's getting a little hard to read from, but it was so much more interesting than Robert. Okay, so like with Simon's story and Isabel's, it ends up holding a ruse, and they kind of make amends, I should say. And yeah, they make a date to when they get home from the summer and stuff, which we'll talk about in the next little bit. But with Robert, this covers the whole, my prototype is gay with me, he's in love with me, and that right there is against all Clave rules, but also like, oh my god. And then there's a whole line there where he's like, maybe I'm gay, and I don't think he is. I think it's just based off the bond of the prototype. It's like this spiritual connection type of thing. It's like imprinting, from Twilight and things, which makes it weird when it's a baby for Jacob, but like still we get the reference. And I hate it. I just hate every moment that we were going back in time with Robert. And it paid off, and like I understand why it's there. And if you're interested in all that stuff, I recommend, if you're curious to know more information, if you want to know more information just simply about the Lightwoods, this is a pretty good section to read as well. Just not my favorite. Next was Pale Kings and Princes. this is when we come back. Okay, so this starts where kind of the really controversial stuff, I would say, with Sibley of Fire starts. And this is the fairies. I'm curious to see what your guys' opinions about the fairies are. I didn't really talk about it in my non-spoiler section. I talked about it a little bit. But the fairies are going to be a huge part, I know, for a fact, with, like, this stuff. Or not this stuff. With all this stuff, I have a very strong feeling fairies are going to be a huge part of this. Which is fine. I like the Steely Queen. She's fun. She's a little messy, but I like her. And I mean, I don't like what she did, but that's why I said she's, like, messy. This one specifically talks about how Simon, in particular, is against all these rules, and he believes that the punishment, which I totally agree with, was uncalled for, and you cannot blame a whole species of a society because of one action done by someone who ruled them. Basically, you know, it's a dictatorship. She says what goes, you listen to what goes, and this is the whole thing. I get it. And so, the main character, I think of actually those, ends up showing up. What was her name? I don't want to read that. That's book 3. That'd be awkward. I can't remember. Oh, actually, you know what? I tell you this. It's actually on it. We love to see it. Helen Blackmore, who I think is the main star of the Queen of Darkness. Or the... I don't remember what they're called. But... so she shows up, and she's there for 4 days. She's getting married. Oh, so she must not be the star. It's somebody in that whole group of things. But she is half, like, she's half, fairy. And the fairies are, like, disgusted and revolted, and so they treat her like shit, basically. And she's getting married, and she is really afraid that her, like, her love or whatever. And so there's 2 storylines going here. We have the storyline with the fairies in the Sealy Court, and we also have the storyline of Simon and Isabel going on their first date, essentially. They go on 3 days, then we totally skip over it. It doesn't matter. It's not really important because it's not shown. And that's how you know it's not important, because it's not shown. And then we go into those, we actually have a date, and it's this whole thing, and they learn to love each other and kiss, and, you know, just they're head over heels now, basically. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed parts of this. I think this was a 4, if I'm not mistaken, which probably what the book will be in, I'm assuming. It's probably like a 4.5, because I really like this one. We'll see how it ends. But it's also like a 4, in my opinion. I liked everything with the Sealy Queens, and once again, I really liked Simon's stance on all this, because I think for instance, I don't want to talk about it. There's another popular YA fantasy series that is really hated right now in the community because of things the author did, where she also tried to do immigration and things like that based on horrible laws with another fictional characters. I thought was done poorly. This I don't think is done poorly, which is really nice. I can't really tell you what the direct reference is there because, like, I just don't want to talk about it. I don't give it a name. But yeah, overall, I really liked it. I enjoyed it, and I liked a lot of the morals here, and I just liked how Isabel and them came together. And yeah, it was nice. Okay, then we have Bitter of the Tongue, which is, once again, the wedding. So we talked about the wedding in the last one. This is actually the wedding happening. And they've been going on these quests and stuff. When you're a second year, you get to go on these quests. And it's now his best friend, who I've not talked about this whole time, George. He's a great character. His best friend, he's like a phenomenal. I really like George. Besides the point. Maybe better than Simon? No. Debatable. But his best friend at the school is the leader, and they have to go hunt down this, like, person from the fairies to basically get them, you know? It's pretty gross, but it's fine. And he ends up going away, and he ends up getting captured by the Sealies, and he meets the youngest who gets taken into, oh my god, it's a black form. It's one of the ones they get taken into the Wild Hunt. I can't think of his name. And basically, it's a very, very sad exchange. Isabel comes and saves, and they go off to the wedding, and it's cute, and it's a fun time. I give this one a 5 out of 5. or a 4 out of 5. It's either a 5 out of 5 or a 4 out of 5. I really liked it. I had a lot of fun, and personally, I would recommend it. I think it's really interesting, and I think ultimately, if you're not to these books yet, what are these called? The Dark Artifice. I think these are the ones that are like super duper helpful for the Dark Artifice because they take place with characters that matter. And then we have the Fiery Trial, which I can't really talk about, but I can kind of mention my opinion so far. This is all about parapetize. Basically, parapetize has been a somewhat okay thing throughout the whole entire section of the book. They've been mentioned a few times. They talked about it a few times because, once again, parapetize were a part of Robert's. Parapetize were a part of James when he was going, and so it's been mentioned. And basically, I was curious to see if Simon would get a parapetize. He ends up does getting a parapetize, and I'll talk about it once I actually finish the story. Probably tomorrow is my best guess. And yeah, overall, I have to say, if we're judging collections off of collections, this I much prefer over the Bane collection. For only one simple reason though. This is a much more cohesive story. There's a lot of stories inside this one cohesive story, but the Simon story is cohesive where it feels like a book. The Magnus Bane stuff is just all scattered and stuff, so it's a little more complicated than that. I don't want to spoil anything there, but yeah. Overall, I'm also not enjoying narrator switching, and I do understand why it's there, I just don't really love it. Overall, if you're thinking about picking this up so far, I recommend. I'm not done yet. Like I said, I have to finish the Fiery Trial, and then we have Born, to Endless Nights, and Angels Twice Ascending. I think he's going to become a Shadowhunter. I mean, it's just the truth. I mean, I don't really know what they're trying to set up, and I don't really know if there's going to be anything set up. These take place in 2012. This takes place in 2008. So yeah, I'm not really sure. I am quite curious, but we'll see. All right, thank you. This is a very long update, but it's fine. All right, hi guys. We're doing the last entry in the vlog for the Mortal. Actually, yesterday was 20 minutes long, so I don't think anybody's complaining. So let's talk about the final 2 stories. Actually, we'll finish the Fiery Trial since I didn't really mention it. Then we'll continue on. So the Fiery Trial, I think I maybe had mentioned it, or I said I started it, follows Clary, and Simon. And this one is all centered around parapetize. And Clary and Simon had decided that they wanted that. Simon's very sure he wants to be a parapetize with Clary when he ascends to become a Shadowhunter, and things like that. These are things you have to decide a little bit early on. In the beginning of the story, another group of people have announced that they're going to be parapetize, and so Magnus basically opens this portal, and it takes Simon on a journey, basically. And the whole point of the journey is that we find out at the very end of the story is the fact that in the very beginning of City of Bones, Simon is in love with Clary, or he believes he's in love with Clary, and their first time ever meeting Jace was when he was about to tell her that I'm in love with you, and she goes and sees Jace instead. It's a whole thing in the first book, but it's again visited here for Simon to understand that in order to be with somebody, be a parapetize, you cannot be in love with the person that you're a parapetize with. For instance, this has been another common theme. There's been 2 other themes in here that I'm going to mention. Both of them take place inside the story, and by this point you should have read this far, so there's no spoilers. Robert has Michael, who is his parapetize, who ends up being gay for him in whole 9 yards, which there's a whole thing behind it. I'm not really sure how much I feel about that whole entire thing. We talked about it yesterday at length. And then we have Emma. Is that right? Is it Emma Carstairs? I gotta look. Yeah, Emma Carstairs and oh my god, I can't. Julian Blackthorne. And it's mentioned in the end of City of Heavenly Fire that they're going to become parapetize, because when you become parapetize with somebody, you can't split them up. It's always the rule. It's the way or whatever. And so when Emma becomes parapetize with Julian, who she's in love with, like head over heels in love with, you know, she still does it, and it's questionable at best in the laws of the clave. And basically, Simon comes into the realization after all these tests and trials that he is no longer in love with Clary. He's like not as he's like in love with like Isabel, and that he believes that them being parati is going to be a-okay. Next one is Born to the Endless Night Made Me Cry. This is the only story in the year that made me cry. I don't think Magnus had one in his. This is a Magnus-centered story. And just thinking about it's kind of making me teary-eyed. It was amazing, you know? I didn't know I needed one, but I did. There's a lot here. There's a lot of good things here. So basically, it starts with a baby showing up on the doorsteps of the Shadowhunter, or, the Shadowhunter Academy, and that baby simply represents, well, it doesn't represent, it's a blue baby, and so it is part warlock, and so Magnus is there to teach a class, and Alec is there, and Simon's like, oh, the only person I know is to go talk, is to tell Magnus. He's the wisest and the smartest and most mature person I've ever met in my whole entire life. I'm gonna go to him because he's been alive for like, a very long time. 1700s, I think, is when that starts. Either way. And so he's been alive for like centuries. And so, yeah. Magnus and Alec come down after being in a sensitive situation and basically take the kid in. They claim this is our kid. Not like this is our kid, like we're going to raise it, but this is, I will figure out what to deal with the kid. And then Alec becomes obsessed with the child. He takes care of the child. He's really kind to the child. He's really caring to the child. And Magnus is kind of like thinking, what the fuck is going on right now? And then he takes a step outside and comes back in, and all the Lightwoods are there. Like, literally all the Lightwoods. And everybody's being really nice and really kind. Richard's being really kind to Alec. And, like, then the mom, who I can't think of the name of, is coming over and being really, really gentle to Magnus, who she's always been against because he's a warlock, and then, the whole gay thing. And, which they're over, but it was a thing in the books, or whatever, in the previous novels, the previous stories. And it's because Alec, by the end of this night, Alec has come to the realization that he wants to keep this child, that he wants to raise this child. And so everybody leaves. He eventually gets everybody to leave, and Magnus sits down with Alec, and they kind of have this really, really big heart-to-heart conversation about, hey, and this is after Magnus has decided, I don't want this child anymore. He's watched this child for like 6 hours, them sleeping, whole 9 yards. It's a cute moment. And he sits down and he's like, you don't have to do this. We don't have to do this. And Alec is the one who's also saying, I know everybody came to the assumption, and I kind of really like him, but we don't have to keep him. We can figure out what else to do. But I wouldn't, I really would pursue this. And Magnus goes on his other spiel, like, I don't want to bury you down with life, and blah, 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 blah. And Alex says something along the lines of, like, I can't believe you would think that. What about what I want? Maybe that's the question we should be asking. Am I ready for this? And I think I am. I think I really want this. And Magnus like, I think I really want this as well. And then they end up naming it Max Lightwood, which is the first ever, like, Downwarder to have a Lightwood name, or to have any big signature Shadowhunter name in it. I mean, they're all like about the same name, but it's all different people. You understand what I mean? And so it was a huge deal, and I'm really curious to see what this brings to later on in the story. It was a big deal here, but the idea that we're going to bring two worlds together as a beacon piece, I'm curious to see what that does to other things going on in the future because of it being a beacon piece, because even like the people who have been totally, truly against anything and everything, Downwarders is now completely for this child. Like, they love this child, they want to be with this child, and to the point where Richard is making, or it's not Richard, it's Robert, I've been saying Richard the whole time, that's hilarious, has been making jokes, like, oh, did you make that baby for them? And I'm okay with it if you did. Like, that type of thing. And it's hilarious, and it's great, and, he mentioned it's like, it's the glint in the color of the baby, it's the glint in the eye of Alec, and all sort of stuff. It was great. Then we have another sweet another sweet section with Simon, since Simon does have a line story going on. It's not really big. basically the biggest plot line here is the conversation between Alec and Simon. Alec has been very standoffish, and there's a lot of different reasons why this could be, and it just actually turns out to be the fact that Alec has always wanted to be the hero, and he's never been the hero. In any situation you've ever come across, he always tries to be the hero, and then he doesn't, then he's not the hero. They also bring up the assault scene in the first book, where Alec pushes Clary for knowing he's gay and things, and it's questionable, and I don't really know if I would have felt. I understand why they reference it, but I don't really know how I feel about referencing it, I should say. I understand, though. By the way, and so Alec just basically pours out his heart, saying, I always wanted to be the hero, and in the Hell Dimension, everybody was kind of looking upon everybody, and I was getting ready to be the hero, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't understand. Jace was dying, Isabel was dying, Clary was dying, everybody was dying, and no one had an option. And you came forward and you saved Isabel and you saved Jace, and then you saved all of us, and I owe you my life. And Simon's thinking to himself that he never believed a hero would ever believe he was a hero in, another hero's eyes. And a lot of people in the school think Alec Whitewood, just like Jace Wayland, are like the biggest heroes of all time. And so knowing that Simon in his eyes is a bigger hero than him was like a whole thing. And so they cleared the air, and it was nice. And there's like a joke or whatever about Jace, but it's not important since I already mentioned it before. And Pale Kings and Princess, I want to say, is what it was. Either way. And then Angels Twice Ascending, which is the final story, is all about the last 4 days of Shadowhunter Academy. You spend 2 years in Shadowhunter Academy, and then you ascend. All mortals have to drink from the Mortal Cup to become a Shadowhunter. Shadowhunters just basically graduate, and then they get to live their life however they want. And so we are all following the Mundanes, and with the Mundanes, they all drink from the cup. And there's 2 options here. You could either ascend with the Angel's blood and become a Shadowhunter themselves, or you can die from whatever this is given. It's based on how the angel perceives you, and it's based on the angel and certain things. And I'm sure what happens here was foreshadowed if I would have picked up on it. I didn't pick up on it, and so I was a little shocked. No, I didn't cry, but I was a little shocked. So George has been a character from day one. I haven't really mentioned George as he's an important character to Simon, but it's not been this huge overarching thing. He hasn't had any big overarching stories, except for the simple fact, just like Simon, he was not who he was supposed to be. George, in the very beginning, I guess I'm crying now. It is what it is. I kind of feel it right here. So if I do start crying, I don't know why I'm crying over George. I didn't really feel that attached to George, except I thought he'd be really hot in real life. But maybe that's just the way the narrators narrate him. But either way, he, in the very beginning of the story, which I'm pretty sure I probably mentioned in one of these clips, he also says, hey, I lied. I'm not actually, this person. I'm not who I say I am. I was adopted by the people who I'm here to represent, but I am also a mundane. As everybody thought he was not a mundane, he was a full-fledged, he was already going to be a Shadowhunter. You just got to work for that school to get there, if you choose that route. He's under Shadowhunter blood, I should say. And so, basically, this whole thing follows several different characters. Simon has this huge regret, I should say, about becoming a Shadowhunter because of several different reasons. When he ascends, he gets all of his memories back. And he is worried to what that could do to him mentally and what that can do to him personally. And then, on other note, we also have other characters. We have a few deserters who are called cowards, even though it's very cleanly said that you're not a coward if you don't, because it's literally life or death. You get to remember the world that you visited and that you worked for 2 years, but you don't get to ascend. And so there's this whole conversation between Simon trying to figure out if he wants to ascend or not, and he believes if he doesn't ascend, then he's embarrassing himself and he's embarrassing everybody who put out their life for him. Magnus and everybody else who went and, who literally shot the shot and hold on yards to get him there. And then he has a conversation with his parents because he can't go back to see his mom. Again, he's in that type of situation. And that's a cute moment, but once again, I don't feel any resentment towards it, or I don't feel any sadness towards it, because his mom has already kicked him out once before for being something she didn't believe was right. And they make a joke about it, and she's like, oh, I always love you, and he even thinks to himself, but will you? And she can't say that, but it's a whole thing. And that's been dealt with throughout all the books. I didn't really talk about Simon in my reviews because I didn't care about Simon. But it's important for this book, because it's all about Simon. And then he goes on a walk and he finds Isabel. I was right. My head was like, it's wrong. Isabel, so Isabel shows up, and they also have a very sweet tender moment where Isabel's like, okay. Okay, he's like, will you love me if I decide not to? And Isabel's like, I loved you as a mundane already. I already did that. I loved you as a vampire. Who would have thought? I loved you as a, and then you got all your memories whisked away. And then I fell back in love with you as a mundane. Yeah, I'm gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. We're gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. And it's really sweet, and I'm just summarizing and stuff. And then they have sex for the first time, which I did not realize had never happened in the 7 books that these characters are followed by. But they had sex for the first time. And it's really sweet and really tender. And then they get to the ascension scene, and he ascends and he becomes a shadowhunter, obviously. I mean, ultimately, of course, we knew he was going to be a shadowhunter, as he has dealt with angels before. As a vampire, he brought up an angel. So in my head, I thought it was going to be square okay. What I was not expecting was George dying. Basically, George takes it, and once again, he is a mundane, and he sure dies. Yes, he does. Oh yeah, he dies. He pesters away, and it's this whole thing that you can't save him once it starts. And so Simon's there watching his best friend, who literally just told, "You're my heart," not like a sexually like I like you kind of way, but like in a very personal, like I've never had anybody this type of way feeling about, like, for a friend, because they're not best friends, but there's a tender moment. And yeah, so he chooses his name, and it's Simon Lovelace, because that's what George's name is under. And that is the Shadowhunter Academy. Tales from Shadowhunter Academy. And I gave it 4.5 stars because every story but one got a 5, almost. Because I won, you just can't really accept a 5. So basically, if you're looking for a book to read, I think I'd recommend almost all of these, except, in case you guys are curious, you can read the Robert one, which is the We Love. And from most good reviews that I've seen so far, everybody is not liking it. Everybody gives it like a 3, everything else gets like a 4 or 5. And everything else is just based off of preference. So go through, we'll do a journalistic thing right now. No, we went through them all. Okay. Alright. So if you guys like this video, please leave a thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you on next time for another beautiful video. Sorry for my hair. And yeah, goodbye. Hello, welcome back to another fabulous video on my channel, where we're starting the next review. I just finished one, and we're starting another one. And that is Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Reyes Brennan, Maureen Johnson, and Robin Wasserman. I want to go through some things before we jump into this, so if you want to jump to when the book pops back up, you totally can. That's okay. I just want to run through some how this is working and that type of thing, so you guys have an idea. So basically, because these are bind-up collections of short stories, we're reviewing every story as they're read. I was in these as audiobooks, and each audiobook, each section, because they're released as novellas and even released the novellas as audiobooks, have different narrators. So I'll complain about it sometimes. I just want to forewarn that. Also, want to mention, so we're reviewing them and rating them, then I'll go over my full entire rating at the very end. Like, I'll tell you what I rated it, but that will determine on what actually it gets on Goodreads. So let's say there's like 7 3-stars and 4 4-stars. Well, I'll go with the 3-star because the majority of stories were a 3-star, but we do have that extra one that was like a 4. You understand what I mean? You get it. I also want to mention that by this point, by the time this is up, I should have a reaction to the first episode of Shadowhunters. I will be reviewing them in the seasons over here on this YouTube channel because I'm doing this whole read-along. And so I'm watching Shadowhunters, The Mortal Instruments or something like that on Freeform. I watched the first season and part of the second season already when it first came out before I read these. but we're going to be revisiting it, and I'm reacting to the first episode, the 12th episode, and then the first episode of season 2, and halfway mark, so forth and so forth. That's how it's working. I think that's it. And going forward, just from Magnus Bank onward, it's going to be reviews of every book. So it's going to be like a reading vlog each time. So this is the only difference here. With reading vlogs, I update you as I read the vlog, whereas this is just, I just wanted to tell you what the story, what I graded it. So, Tales from Shadowhunter is huge spoilers. I want to say this again. Huge spoilers for at least the Mortal Instruments. I'm not entirely sure if it spoils TID, but the Mortal Instruments, gigantic. Gigantic. I didn't understand it, now I do. So this follows, did I say it? If you've not read the Mortal Instruments, don't pick this up. And I mean, you could have read like the first 3 Mortal Instruments, that's fine, but you have to have read them all 6. Okay, you ready? This one follows Simon Lewis as he has been a human and a vampire, and now becoming a shadowhunter. Like I said, spoilers in the first line. And yeah, I'm not entirely sure what else it includes because I don't read the flaps of anything anymore. I just pick up books. I don't really care what they're about. Is that bad? No, I think it's more fun. And so the first story, which is what we're going to talk about right now, because I read it already. I know. This is supposed to be an intro. It's called Welcome to the Shadowhunter Academy. And they have some nice illustrations with some lines, and then they have a direct line of like an event that happens in it or whatever. They reference it. It's normally like a more important. Then they have an S. I don't know. Here's the thing. Forewarned. I hated Simon. And I've talked about this in all my reviews, which I'll link down below. For the Mortal Instruments playlist, I'll just link it down below. It's also going to be at the end of this video. But I hated Simon with a passion. And I mean a true passion. I fucking despise this dude, okay? And then I read this. The first story, and I was like, have I been being a dick to Simon? And hear me out. That was life-changing, okay? For instance, he pops up in this. Not going to tell you why. But he pops up in this, and I was like, it's Simon. And then, also for instance, he's obviously in this, and he gets turned back into a human, loses all his memories and stuff. Everybody, that's what this is all about. And by the end, I was like, oh my god, I think I'm crying for Simon. And I didn't get it. Because I didn't really understand his character arc. I didn't think it was necessary. I think it's because I just keep remembering he cheated on Isabel, and I just never forgave it. I didn't really like, Molly. Is that right? I want to say it's Molly. That's how much I didn't like her. The werewolf girl, who had a very tragic story. But when Jordan died, I didn't care either. And yeah, like I said, huge spoilers. Okay. So this, however, made me kind of a Simon fan. And I think it's because it's like before he knew about the Shadowhunter world, and so he didn't turn into a total jackass the whole time. Because I remember thinking in the beginning of the book, oh, you seem fun. Then he turned into a vampire, and then he was like a jackass. And we don't get Vampire Simon at all. He doesn't even remember it. This is a book, of course, of 2 years of him becoming a Shadowhunter. If he becomes a Shadowhunter, I mean, it could end with him not being one. It's a possibility. I don't know. We'll find out together. Either way, I gave the first one, I think, a 4 out of 5 stars. Or maybe I gave it a 5. That's what it was. I thought it was perfection. I liked how he had to talk, his awkward introductions. I like Isabel showing up at the Shadowhunter Academy and she's telling him that he loves him. Then she's saying, you love this other guy, and I really need to get away from this other guy so I can find me. And I like his new best friend, who his roommate is. I thought he was really cool. And then I also like how he was like, I'm not a part of the elites. I'm a part of the mundane. I also enjoy all that. There's a lot of this I really, really do enjoy. And we'll see. He's supposed to be interacting with a vampire here soon. And, you know, I'm quite excited. I'm in the middle of that story. It's the Lost Herondale. So the stories go as following. Welcome to Shadowrun County, the Lost Herondale, the Whitechapel Friend, Nothing But Shadows, the Evil We Love, Pale Kings and Princesses, Bitter of the Tongue, the Fiery Trial, Born to Endless Nights, Angels Twice Descending. It is a total of... Damn it. Jesus. 655 pages. So yeah. There's that. There you go. I'm quite excited. I'm not gonna lie. I'm enjoying myself. I'll be updating you over the course of the next few days as we run through this. Okay, those are all my updates for you.